Arsenal Football Club are standing on the edge of glory.
It's Rice again!
Mikel Arteta is on the precipice of immortality. Declan Rice could be about to have his name mentioned for years to come and could be compared to some of the very best who have ever graced the beautiful game. Roy Keane in Turin in 1999. Steven Gerrard versus Olympiacos or in Istanbul in 2005. Didier Drogba beating Munich in Munich in 2012. Declan Rice versus Real Madrid 2025. Rice versus Madrid. Declan Rice 2025. It could become everyday football parlance. You know how it is, the way that you just say the words and everyone immediately knows what you mean. Roy Keane in Turin. I'm telling an entire story in such few words. Gerrard in Istanbul. It's almost biblical. You know exactly what happened. In years to come, it could be as simple as this. Rice, Real Madrid. It could become part of football folklore. And if Arsenal achieve the unthinkable, which is actually now fairly likely, everything could be about to change. Immortality. Henri at the Bernabeu. Think about what that means. When you do it, and you do it well against Real Madrid, it is defining. And the stats don't lie. When I was saying Arsenal can't knock Real Madrid out, it's basically because nobody can knock Real Madrid out of the European Cup at this stage. Over 2 decades have passed since Real Madrid were last beaten in the quarterfinals of the European Cup. 21 years. 21 years. That's how far you have to go back for the last time that Real Madrid were beaten here. A prize for anyone who gets it. Be honest, did you? The answer is Monaco. But it was so long ago. Monaco went on to play us in the semi-final. It was Claudio Ranieri's Chelsea, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank's Chelsea. Fernando Morientes destroyed us because Ranieri decided to play Hasselbank on the wing. But that's how long ago it was. It was the Monaco of Ludovic Giuly, the Monaco of Emmanuel Adebayor, the Monaco of Patrice Evra, before he'd even signed for Manchester United. How much football has been played since then? But Real Madrid have never been beaten at the quarterfinals of the European Cup since that very year. And there is a symmetry that Arsenal can really take inspiration from. That Monaco team were led by a relatively young and inexperienced manager, Didier Deschamps. It was a dazzling Real Madrid side, just as this one is. It was a Real Madrid side of Zinedine Zidane, Roberto Carlos, Luis Figo, Ronaldo, Raul and David Beckham. Much as this current Real Madrid team is laced with superstars, and I believe that we are actually in a Galactico era of Real Madrid. Monaco, Morientes and Ludovic Giuly dispatched that Real Madrid team 20 years ago. And I believe that this Arsenal team can do it. They were dazzling. They were brilliant. They were perfect at the Emirates. And to be totally frank, they deserve to win by more. It will go down as the best performance in the new Emirates Stadium. Arsenal have never put in a performance as impressive as that against such illustrious opposition since they moved to this new stadium over 20 years ago. And as a result of their dominance and their perfection, they are now on the precipice of history. They're standing at the crossroads and in front of them is a beacon of hope and change. And I think they're going to do it. I'm confident. I don't want it to happen, but I'm confident that Arsenal are going to progress through into the semi-final. But we have to talk about the eventuality that they do not. When I say they're on a crossroads, it's not really a crossroads. A crossroad implies that you can go both ways. I think that Arsenal are going to progress. I think that Mikel Arteta will get it right. And actually, it wouldn't surprise me if Arsenal go to the Bernabeu and win. Beating Real Madrid home and away in a knockout round of the European Cup, that could be the moment that the penny drops for this Arsenal team and they realise that they are elite and beyond their years. But there is one problem with being so brilliant in the first leg. And I appreciate that this is a glass half full outlook, but I think it's important to see football not in a vacuum and explore it from both sides. So let's do just that. Weirdly, there is one issue with being so good, and that is simply this. The expectation level has changed. People expect Arsenal to win the game in the Bernabeu. People expect Arsenal to proceed in the European Cup. People expect Arsenal to potentially win the European Cup. They certainly expect Arsenal to be in the semi-final draw. And the counterweight to the expectation is this. If Arsenal do not go through, it would be an unmitigated disaster, a catastrophe, an absolute historic disaster if Arsenal do not progress. And quite frankly, it's unfair because prior to a ball being kicked in this tie, I didn't think Arsenal were going to go through. Now, Now, because of their dominance, it totally changes. If they don't go through from here, it is a disaster. And the reason why it's a disaster is because, again, it lives long in the memory. You know, earlier when I was talking about Declan Rice making history, comparing Declan Rice to Roy Keane, Steven Gerrard, Didier Drogba, the flip reverse, as Blazing Squad said, is also unlikely but possible. When I say icons, you potentially say Rice. When I say bottlers, you undoubtedly say Paris Saint-Germain. Now, everybody believed that Paris Saint-Germain under Unai Emery were going to progress off the back of their dominant 4-0 win in the first leg against Barcelona. But on some level, beating Barcelona 4-0 in 2017 was one of the worst results of Unai Emery's glittering career. Because that impressive night, that 4-0 victory, actually set him up for what must be a haunting night for him. His worst result in his managerial life, surely. Similarly, that Valverde side that totally capitulated at Anfield. Anybody involved that night, it must simply break their hearts. The Dembele miss at the end. It must constantly be being thought about. Lionel Messi collapsing to the floor off the back of squaring it for Dembele to put Barcelona out of sight, to put Barcelona 4-0 up. On some level, Valverde never really recovered from that result. Yes, he won a couple of leagues, but he was never given the opportunity to win 3 in a row. Unai Emery, I rate so highly. And he's a wonderful manager, incredibly talented. But some would say that result, whilst at Paris Saint-Germain, is the reason that he isn't at an absolute elite level club. And that is what Mikel Arteta and Arsenal need to be careful of. Not hugely careful, aware of. What they can't be is scared. They shouldn't be too careful. And they most certainly shouldn't be scared. They're the better team who played Real Madrid off the park. They need to go out into this new look Bernabeu. And they need to have their heads held high. They need to put their shoulders back and they need to peacock. They need to strut onto that pitch and match the ego of Real Madrid. But they do need to be aware, because if it doesn't go right, it goes really wrong, like massively wrong, like catastrophically wrong, like historically wrong, like Emery Valverde levels of wrong. But if it goes well, and annoyingly, it's going to go well, if it does go well, it's the moment that things shift. The penny dropping moment for this Arsenal squad. It puts them on the top table. If there ever was a discussion about Declan Rice being world class, that discussion is over. If there ever was any doubters as to the brilliance of Bukayo Saka, and there are some doubters, weirdly. I had quite a severe argument on TalkSport. It was rather unedifying for everyone involved, with some geezer who called me up to tell me that Rodrigo was better than Bukayo Saka. Not as anything is Rodrigo a better player than Bukayo Saka. But if there is a conversation around the brilliance of Saka, if there is a conversation around the world-class characteristics and properties of Bukayo Saka, winning at the Bernabeu, eliminating Real Madrid at the Bernabeu ends those conversations for good. And if it does go well, and by go well, I mean lose 1-0, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If Arsenal are victors in the tie, they change for good. They can never be labelled bottlers again. Bottlers do not win in Madrid. Bottlers do not launch Real Madrid out of the European Cup. Bottlers do not succeed in the Bernabeu. Do you know who succeeds in the Bernabeu? Winners. Do you know who succeed in the Bernabeu as an away team? Champions. Do you know what properties the kind of person who can go to the Bernabeu and win will exude? Conquerors. European conquerors. And that is what this Arsenal team could be. Terrifyingly, heartbreakingly, that is what this Arsenal team might be. You know, there was a moment fairly recently when I was sitting on the overlap and Chanel, the Arsenal fan, said that Arsenal were going to make history this year. They were going to win the European Cup. I scoffed, I sneered, I laughed.
I think we're going to do the unthinkable and the unimaginable, and we'll win the Champions League.
And I will be totally frank with you now, I really am not laughing. I am terrified, truly upset, perturbed and put out at the prospect of Arsenal winning the European Cup, because there is something about this side. There is something about the moment. There is something about the noise and the belief around the Emirates Stadium in the European Cup that reminds me a little bit of what Chelsea were doing in 2012. So imagine if Arsenal evict Real Madrid from the European Cup. The Champions League dream is over for serial European Cup winner Carlo Ancelotti with serial European Cup winner Real Madrid. All because of Mikel Arteta and Arsenal. Even a 1-0 defeat in the Bernabeu Mikel Arteta is king. Think of Jose Mourinho at the Nou Camp in 2010, when he came running on the pitch, looking up at the Inter fans, giving it a big one. Nobody cares that they lost on the night. And it would honestly be, obviously, Mikel Arteta's biggest scalp of his entire managerial career. And legendary status could be well within his grasp. If he were to do it, Barcelona would be desperate to have him at the helm, wouldn't they? For Ancelotti, it feels sort of make or break. If Real Madrid don't win the league, and it's not looking like they're going to, they've been struggling and they are behind Barcelona in the race for La Liga. If they don't win La Liga and they don't win the Champions League, it's fair to conclude that he will be sacked. C'est la vie at the Bernabeu via the Champions League thing. But it did click. And because of that, Arsenal need to be respectful, cautious, but most certainly not afraid. History awaits these Arsenal players. Immortality beckons for this squad. And Mikel Arteta could be about to achieve the impossible for Arsenal. When you think about Arsenal icons over the years, there are far too many to mention. Obviously, I'm aware of what Herbert Chapman did for the club. I've seen Charlie George lying straight down at Wembley Stadium when he scored the winner in the FA Cup final. I, unlike all Arsenal fans weirdly, am aware and have seen the Tony Adams moments when Steve Bold puts him through against Everton, securing them the Premier League title at Highbury, winning the league at Tottenham more than Tottenham, winning the league at Old Trafford. We won the league in Manchester and all that. Alan Smith versus Palmer, Ramsey in the cup final, Steve Morrow breaking his arm. Annoyingly, because of where I grew up, I know all the lyrics to Hot Stuff and She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. But when you think of the glittering history of London's most successful club, none of it is really about today. None of the true icons are of this era. Could that all be about to change? I have a terrible feeling that it is. I have a terrible feeling that Mikel Arteta is going to get it right. And let's face it, if you can beat Real Madrid, if you can launch Real Madrid out of the Champions League, you can beat anyone. And that is a world I am not ready to live in. Ugh, agony. Cards on the table. I am desperately supporting Real Madrid, but I think Arsenal are going to do it. Even if they lose on the night, they are going to proceed into the semi-finals of the European Cup. There we have it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you've enjoyed it, give it a like, click subscribe, and I look forward to debriefing with you after the game in a bit.